mistakes that most people make when buying a kayak. Number two, we're going to talk about how to buy the right boat, which in some type of way is really the same thing. Number three, we're going to talk about the three best accessories. If you're going to buy a boat, I know kayak, one thing I love about the kayak community is I feel like they're very modular, meaning you can buy a little bit here, a little bit there, and eventually build the boat of your dreams just by spending a little bit of money at a time without having to invest $20,000 in it right off the jump. So we're going to talk about the three best places to spend your money, I would say within the first year or so. And then I want to talk about motors. When I first got into kayaks, having an electric motor on your kayak was completely taboo. Matter of fact, when I first started kayaking, having a pedal drive was taboo. You were trash if you tried to put a pedal drive on a kayak. You weren't the real deal. All that's changed in the last 5 years with motors, and I think it's realistic for if you're going to own a kayak to have motors in most situations. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Let's just jump right into it. So I guess we'll start with you, Jeff, and then Scott, you kind of bounce off of whatever you think needs to be covered too. But Jeff, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people come to you asking about kayaks, and I'd love to hear what you think is the three most common mistakes that people make when they're looking to buy their first kayak, or really just buying a boat, period.
I'm going to start with two real important questions that person needs to answer if they're getting into it. One is where you're going to fish. Like, what is the type of fishery you're looking to get into, right? Do you want to do offshore down on the Gulf Coast and get those kingfish and maybe drop some big baits for snapper? Or are you like me up in the mid-Atlantic and love to do the river smallmouth thing? Or are you in the southeast and you like, hitting the bigger reservoirs, and the type of fishery that you're going to fish is a really important consideration, and it'll drive what type of kayak that you're going to get. The other one is, how are you going to transport it? And there's kind of two parts of it. Are you, how you get it from your house, like it's road transport, but it's also transport from wherever you park your vehicle into the water, right? And like my last trip 2 days ago in a small river in Virginia, my transport from the truck to the water, like, it required some bushwhacking and walking through, briars and like down. I mean, there was a part of it that was more of a controlled fall than anything else. And if you have a really big, heavy kayak, and that's the kind of fishing that you want to do, you've made the wrong choice. So what's the fishery? How are you going to get it there?
Right. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned like carrying
Scott into this, because we've got some great throwing goals.
So I break it down similar into two different categories, the same, right? So if you're a guy like me or Jeff, like we're predominantly kayak fish. Like, we love to fish, but we're predominantly kayak fishermen, and we have multiple different kayaks and different rigs, as we call them, for whatever different type of water and situation we're getting into. If you're a guy like you, Brian, to where like you have a John boat, a bass boat, or this, that, whatever, and kayak fishing, like to me, I break it down as are you taking a throw and go, or are you a boat in a trailer and it's a rig, right? So to me, a throw and go is I can pick it up with nothing on it, no motor, no grass, no nothing, and a couple of rods. I can throw that over my shoulder and throw it in the back of the truck, have a couple of rods in a tackle box, and I'm 2 hours after work, or a river trip, or you're like you said, you're bushwhacking to go down through. I'm not carrying all that motor, those batteries, the electronics, live scope. Like, I'm not carrying all that with me. For that, with what I call a boat and a rig on a trailer, that's a full blown setup. That boat is rigged out. It has my wiring, it has my electronics in it, everything there. So it lives on that trailer in my garage. So I drop a ball hitch just like you do on your bass boat, and I go to the water and everything is there. So to me, it breaks down as the same thing that Jeff's talking about there. It's do I want to throw and go and be able to just up and go, or is this going to be my main fishing platform? And I want to be able to do a little bit of everything. Like, yes, I can back it into to a ramp at Gunnersville and and fish 20 miles in each direction. You know what I mean, with my motor on the back, or I can strip it down and and drop it down an embankment and get into a river still. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it does matter on, and you're answering those questions for yourself. How am I using this and where am I using it? So Jeff's nailed it, obviously.
So you mentioned something really important, and I'm thinking of like if I was just in the kayak market, you said you talked a little bit about weight, but what really is heavy versus like what would be the weight range you would say, okay, this is a boat that I can use to throw on my shoulder, and then this is a boat where it definitely needs to be trailered because I
So
think I
again,
in my mind that looks different for different people.
it does, 100%. It does. You know what I mean? Me at at 45 years old, a guy who regularly is in the gym, 6 foot 225, I can throw a 100 pound crew up, up on my shoulder and and get it down a riverbank. As to where taking going out with my dad or some of my retired cop buddies, they're not doing that. You know what I mean?
I'm
So
not
it is
doing that.
different. The flip side of correct. So typically a
Heavy
throw and
emphasis
go.
on I'm not doing that.
Correct.
Right.
Well, so a lot of guys, the smaller boats, have come a long way, but really the inflatable scene has really
Yeah.
changed a lot over just this last 2 or 3 years, and I think there's still been a the inflatable scene. I feel like, and Jeff, I really would love you to lean into this too.
Yeah,
Is the
that's
inflatable
waiting
scene
a little bit
is
to get back into the discussion with the inflatables. And so
well,
the
well,
words
that's what I'm
across the
saying. So
top say building dream kayak. I've done that. So I worked
correct.
almost 7 years with Torquedo Test, which is an electric motor company, and made an incredible motor system. I got to test all sorts of different manufacturers kayaks, different models as the models came out. And Scott, working with Crescent, I was like, hey, we got a new one coming, you want to try this? And like,
Yep.
I tested a lot of them, so I had a lot of experience in different fisheries and in different boats doing different things. And for propulsion efficiency, I thought, I noticed that the inflatables were doing better than anything else. It's basically a flat bottom boat, which some of that knowledge has crossover. Sorry, Brian, I'm jumping ahead to the motor thing
No,
already, but
no. Go, go,
it's
go, go, go. We're gonna
it's
come back to it. If it's good
there's
to
a
say in the beginning,
crossover
it's
of that
good to say it
knowledge
in the end.
from kayak
Yeah.
propulsion to electric only john boat fishing, which is another market that we served, in Torquedo. And I learned a lot from those electric only john boat guys, right? And a
Mhm.
flat bottom that is lightweight, that the weight is forward was important. So I just said for my own river smallmouth fishing, I I looked at what inflatables were out there, and NRS made some good stuff, and Sea Eagle made some good stuff, and they still do. But I said I want it a little different than what's out there, and I kept looking around to say, hey, NRS, would you make it like this, or Sea Eagle, would you make it like that? And I didn't really get anywhere, so I'm like, let me just design and order one of these things, find out where they're made. By the way, they're manufactured, drop stitch flooring is manufactured in China and Vietnam. I couldn't find manufacturers domestically. I looked, but I ordered one and have been updating and changing it for years. And basically, I sell my design of the Dream Kayak, which it's the Osprey 1436, and then there's a 12-foot version, and we have some other ones coming. And the one I was using the other day was a throw and go, but I don't have to get into all that. It's an innovative sportsman inflatable kayak,
Mhm.
that somebody else like Trey rigs it and puts the frame and so forth. But let's just talk about inflatables more generally. Like Hobie has some nice inflatables, but it's basically a stand up paddleboard. It's a with some kind of seating set up on it, right?
All right.
The advantages of the inflatable, for sure, it's weight, but it's also the big one that everyone's going to really appreciate is stability. And everyone's afraid of flipping a kayak, right? The physics of standing on a platform of compressed gas. You ever try to drown a beach ball? Like it fights you, right? So
Right.
it's crazy stable. Shallow draft, incredibly shallow draft has a lot of advantages in especially the river fishing, but any shallow water fishery, Um, and then stealth. So there's something about how that pocket, that bubble of air you're sitting on, does not transfer the noises that you make topside from you scooching around in the
Ah,
seat and it creaking,
quiet.
but also
Correct.
also
Yes.
the wave action. If there's wave action, it doesn't reverberate that sound. The hull slap of a
The
harder
whole
platform, it just eats
yeah.
that. So
I never
you
thought
don't
about that.
you don't really notice it until you notice it, and it
Until you
takes
It's
go
definitely
back.
took
stealth.
me
Yeah.
it took me like a year and a half to be like, I've been awesome for like last 18 months. I'm catching more fish and like it clicked. I'm seeing more fish because they're letting me get closer
Ah,
to them. So
whoa, I
stealth is
never
a
thought
big
about
part of
that.
it.
I never thought
Well,
about
to
that.
me, it's really funny to me because I think like where Jeff is now with the inflatable side of the kayak industry is to me, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's where I think the inflatable side of the industry now is where the kayak side of the industry was 10 years ago. In that you got the inflatable guys are still educating the consumers on the durability, all the questions that come with an inflatable of what an inflatable is. The same way you talk about drowning a beach ball, we've also all seen how easy it is to pop a beach ball, right? So
Yep.
I think educating that consumer is where Trey and Innovative Sportsman and Jeff and some of these guys are doing that. But going back to the kayak side of that, like we've seen this burst in the kayak scene. I mean, we go back, be like we go back 6, 7 years ago to being at an ICAST together, and I mean, in every single booth, what did you see? You saw a kayak in every booth, whether it was Lou's, whether it was Z-Man. Like there was, Real Tree had a kayak. Like I mean, there was a kayak in every booth 6, 7 years ago because the kayak fishing side of it blew up and became as popular as it was. And I think that we're on the verge of this next 2 or 3 years of seeing that the inflatables be that market too. The inflatables are really coming along, and I'm excited to see what that does. As a guy who has been so kayak driven and so rotor molded, which is how we is how we manufacture these kayaks. It's a process called rotor molding, and so I'm excited to see how that continues to grow, and how
Right.
that continues to transform as more and more actual anglers are designing these inflatables to be used as anglers.
So I hear you. I think the play on the inflatable, because if I'm listening to y'all correct, one three of the most common mistakes is probably buying a boat that you either can or cannot you can't trailer it. I mean, you can't put it in the back of your truck, or it's too big for you to haul around with your hands. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes is not having adequate way to haul it. Second thing, it sounds like what I heard is choosing a boat that's not the best for the body of water that you're going to be fishing. So buying a boat
Correct.
too small if you're going to be fishing in the ocean, in the Gulf Coast, or buying one that's too big if you're going to be paddling around in a stream or a river or something like that, or hauling it down a bank. So I can see how the inflatables would definitely cover that space. 'Cause I know, like for me, I've got like 4 kayaks, and it's a little bit annoying because they're just all over the yard. I'd love to have an inflatable that I could deflate when I know I'm not going to be using a kayak, and then when I'm
Yep.
ready to use it, put some air in it and take it to the lake. Is that like it's
Yep.
actually they actually take up quite a bit of space. You wouldn't think
No,
so,
no,
but a
oh,
kayak it
they
takes up a lot
they
of
totally
space.
do.
Yeah.
If I can, Brian, let me come back to one. I'd love to give my number one on common mistakes when buying a kayak. Can I do that? Because it's a
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
straightforward. And
Right.
and
Yeah.
Jeff, I know you've heard this in the past. We've been talking about it for more than a decade together in this space. Buy your second kayak first.
Yeah. I think I heard
What I
Gene say
mean
that.
what I mean by that is what we've been talking about it for years. I heard it from Jeff when I was new to this industry coming in 10 years ago. From Chad, from Gene. But buy your second kayak first because so
Mhm.
many people are like, oh, I don't know if I'm getting into this, and so I don't want to spend 1,000, so I'll spend 600. You know what I mean, or whatever, and you get it, and you get out, and you love it, and then you're instantly flipping that boat or trying to do this, that, whatever buy your second kayak first. If you have the money and you have the means, and you know this is what I want, but you're going to take one step back. I challenge new customers all the time. If you're trying to save the money and you're $300 away or whatever, or like if I do this, I
Spending
can't add the
300 bucks.
motor, or I can't do that, or whatever. Like other than a PFD and a paddle, like that's all you need to get on the water. Buy your second kayak first if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm going to add like a huge mistake and a way to avoid the huge mistake if you're going to get your first or second. So I've had different jobs in the kayak fishing industry, right? And most of the jobs have revolved around marketing and in particular sales. I've been a sales manager for a bunch of different companies, from Torpedo to Boondocks, and recently a kayak trailer company. And I've had contracts with other, like short-term contracts with other accessory companies. And in doing that, I visited a lot of different retailers, a lot of different kayak dealers, right? I think in the last year and a half, I think I covered, actually, it might be 2 years. It was over 160 specialty retailers, kayak shops, paddle shops, we say.
Correct.
The biggest mistake that you can make is not buying from one of these paddle shops, these specialty retailers that understand the local fishery. They
Oh,
understand your challenges of how you're going to get it from your house to the water and from your vehicle to the water. They're gonna know the right questions to ask you. And I think increasingly everything's going to e-commerce, and you gotta look on TikTok or Instagram and listen to what the influencers aren't asking you where you're going to fish and how you're going to get it there, but the paddle
Correct.
shop owner, they're the guy that works there, and the best ones, the ones that I think do the best, do really good rigging. Like if you want a depth finder installed on there, that's a good way to know if you go into a good kayak fishing shop. Hey, if I want a depth finder on here, can you guys like either teach me how to do that, or can I pay you to do that? Right? If they can put a depth
Exactly.
finder on there, that's a good marker that you're not in a box store.
yeah.
Yep.
And
No,
I do.
100%.
and you know these shops are actually falling by the wayside because everyone's buying everything online. When you buy it online, it delivers to your house. Man, you're gonna have
There,
forklift
there's no one.
jobs in
There's
there.
no one showing you how to set it up. There's no one showing you how to rig this, rig that. No one talking you through what paddle size you need or how that PFD should fit. Like no one's like, hey, this is if you're going to go to that water, like here in our area here in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area anyway. We've got the Chattahoochee. We've got the Flint's right down the road. We've got the Etowah. All these different bodies of water. And when you go into a shop like Westbrook there in Midtown, like it's one of those things where like those guys in that building float and fish the same water that you're going on, so they understand what that when they talk about a boat ramp, they launch on that boat ramp. They know they can see none of that, but they get to see you in person. They know that hey, you're 5'7", 145 pounds. Like you probably don't need a 145-pound boat. You
Gotcha.
get what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So
I
no,
hear
I
you.
mean
Let
Jeff's
me
has
tell
When you
y'all
go
what
to a
he's
shop
saying.
like that and you pull up your phone and you're like, you have this boat for this much, I can save $50. I'm going to leave and go ahead and do that. Guess what? You've just forfeited $50, or you've not given them $50 or the whole sale. Do you think you've saved $50? Guess what? The people at that shop with their expertise are going to save you tons of money.
Yeah.
They're
hundred
going
He's
to
gonna
percent.
ask you
sell
the
you
right question.
a whole nother boat sale. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, a whole nother boat sale. I can tell y'all what he's telling you without telling you, because he can't tell you because he's worked for companies. He's telling you when you go to Bass Pro Shops, Dick's, Academy to buy a kayak, you're probably going to buy the wrong kayak. Is what he's trying to tell you. Okay,
I,
that's
I,
what we're
as a
trying to say. You're probably not going to
as a
get to
guy
know
as a
everything
guy
you need
who's
to know.
been as a guy who's probably been a part of the Crescent kayak scene for the last 6 or 7 years, and working very very hard along with our owner and all of our team in building an American made premium product. That's something is stamped into the plastic into the plastic molds that we rotomold these boats on. We never badmouth any other boats, but there is a huge difference when you get an
Yeah.
American made product versus buying something that the guys that are molding it and throwing it on a truck overseas and putting it in a container, and then that boat could have been molded 6 months ago, set in a container on top of with eight other boats on top of it, flattened out, whited out, this or whatever. And like I said, and even if it's in Dick's Academy, this or whatever, and I'm not bad mouth any of those. Like if that's what you can afford and that's what gets you on the water, I want you on the water. Like if that is literally what you can do, I want you on the water. If you're 600 miles, I deal with kayak dealers every day in customer service with our company, and we have dealers we have customers that are 500 miles from being able to get on anyone. I social media is a great place, and not everybody's on Facebook and Instagram, whatever. But man, it's a great place to find pockets of these people. And I would challenge most kayak people, and Jeff, you'll back me up on this. Most kayak people would love to meet you at a boat ramp and let you go test this, let you go try that, let you go get
That's
out in these
good.
boats. Most guys that own these boats are, even if they're not a brand person or they're not like, they're loyal to, like, this is why I love this boat, and they'll explain it to you and help you out. And especially, the last 10 years as I got into the space, I mean, when I was with Bonafide, I mean, with that 127, I single-handedly put 287 guys in that boat for personal demos in the first year. Like, I
Wow.
mean,
That's what
it's
you,
one of
that's
those
I
things
still
that,
have mine. You gave me a
oh yeah,
107 and
no,
127.
oh, 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I knew that you're a fisherman. You know what I mean? You're a
Yeah.
dad. You're an angler. You want to just fish. And so when I saw you at ICAST, I was like, hey man, like this is one of those things. It's right down the road from your house there in South Carolina, or it was at the time. And it's
Yep.
like, dude,
Yeah.
like, let's go build a boat and let me get you on why I love this. I love this
Yeah.
sport so much. Jeff always feels like I'm kissing his butt, but like this sport doesn't exist without guys like Jeff who were doing this. Jeff, you were in your first boat in what, 97, 90, 98, somewhere in there, right?
It was 98. Yeah. I so
Wild.
I mean, I didn't know anyone else that did it. I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, fishing the Upper Potomac River for smallmouth and channel cat, and usually I'd rent a canoe from the livery at Swains Lock, paddle up the C&O Canal, drag it over the towpath into the river, and float down. And like as a 14-year-old, I figured out how to ride a bike to Swains Lock to go do that. So it was a lot of canoe fishing, and that continued into I was at um, into my college years, and soon after I graduated from college, I was doing that with a 17-foot aluminum Grumman on a really windy day in March, and like I couldn't fish. The wind was blowing upstream so hard I couldn't get downstream, and it was just frustrating. I didn't get to make many casts because I was constantly on the paddle. I'm like, there's got to be a better way, and
Well,
the frustration of that day eventually led me to buy a kayak because it's lower profile and double paddle blade and you know and I got into it. I mean, I bought an Old Town Loon 138, which is a sit-in kayak, and promptly took it out and took it through a class 2 rapid, turned it sideways on a strainer, flipped upside down in it, and was stuck upside down with my feet up and my head underwater, kind of pinned there for a second, wiggled my way out, popped up to the surface, a little bit hypothermic, and lost. I wore glasses back then. Lost my glasses, couldn't really see much, but I still had the boat and the paddle. And I got out of there, and I said, I need an education.
Mhm.
So that started this self education um, in the whitewater community. So I did the DC Canoe Cruisers, was a local organization that provided classes from whitewater paddling to swiftwater rescue, and like I went in whole hog. I just did as much education as I could because I didn't want to experience that again, and I wanted to be able to fish out of the kayak and know that A, I was safe, but B, I wanted the whitewater paddling skills to put that boat wherever I wanted to catch fish that I didn't feel secure that I could get up through that rapid and fish that pocket, right? And eventually I earned ACA certification as a paddling instructor, and that led to, back then it was about 9 years of teaching people one-on-one.
Right.
So with the framework of whitewater paddling, I I brought people into the fold. I brought people into kayak fishing, and I promoted it with outdoor publication, doing so many different magazine articles, and it grew along the way. And eventually, I turned to making DVDs. That sort of dates my video production, and did years of YouTube, and then switched recently to the Uscreen channel, where I have a lot of that educational content, paddling wise, and I'm back to teaching in person. But it's I did it when I didn't know anyone else who was doing it, just because it just seemed like
It's
a good
because there was
idea,
no one else.
and it has been a
Yeah,
good idea.
yeah, no one
Yeah.
else was
So
doing it at the time.
on that note right there, let's talk about. You mentioned some really good things about the boat that you were using, from switching from the canoe and then going when the deal with the rapids. I think that's a good segue to talk about how to choose the right boat. Mike, you want to switch that slide? Uh, I like that what you were mentioning earlier on in that last point about knowing if you're going to be fishing the Gulf Coast or reservoirs or rivers or sliding down the rivers, the bank sides and things like that. Can y'all both of you give us examples? I would say the three, just given our community, the people that you're talking to, they're either going to be fishing rivers or reservoirs or creeks. And I'd love to hear what you guys, for those three examples, rivers, reservoirs, and creeks, what would be your preferred boat for each of those three bodies of water? Does
You
that
want to
make
give us?
sense?
You want us to specific boats, or are we going to talk about like
Yeah,
how a boat is
specific
built?
boat.
What you
Yeah.
look
Yeah. Size. It could even be brand. If you were going to fish a reservoir tomorrow, you didn't have a kayak, what are you buying? Love to hear that.
well. If I'm going to a reservoir, if I'm going to Gunnersville or Logan Martin, one of these bigger bodies of water around me, up to like I like a bigger boat. I like a boat with a motor. I
Right.
like to fish with a graph. I like to map. I like to pitch in under docks and stuff, and I like to move around. I'm definitely a throw and go. I'm a bait caster guy, predominantly moving and moving on flat water. For me, I like a bigger boat. I'm a fan of. I mean, my favorite boat is not is actually a wreck boat. It's called a Crescent Crew. They build that as a solo fishing version. That's called a CK2, but it's a 13 and a half foot boat that's designed as a two man, but it has a center seat pocket that I throw my Millennium frame seat in and rig it with my Torpedo 1103 and my graphs and everything on it. Now that it is a rig that I don't drag it. I don't. It lives on a trailer. It backs
Trailer.
into a concrete boat
Okay.
ramp and
How big
go
is
from
that boat?
there. And that boat's 13 and a half foot.
Okay.
But then you go from there and you go into to bigger boats, which is what is all the rage is right now. That boat, that Crew or CK2, for me is still paddleable. I'm still a guy that even when I fish, it's actually funny, Brian, because like when I go fish with my buddy John Cox or some of these other guys, and we go out on their full size skeeter, like I'm a guy who like I still feel weird not fishing in a life jacket because I'm so used to having all that stuff on me, but I'm so used to having to fishing with a paddle in my lap because that's how I make my small adjustments for casting, and that's my approach. But what we're seeing in the bigger world now with like the Crest Craft or the XTR is these bigger, I mean, almost small John boat
They're
size
boats.
rotomolded kayaks. They are. They're
Yeah.
boats.
I've seen
And
that
I mean,
XTR. It's giant.
yeah, I mean, and when you got Chad and Gene, who no disrespect, are both huge men, and they're both standing
Can
on
you
this
fish off
same
the
small
bow?
plastic boat. Yeah, like there's no world where you two guys are fishing together on that boat. I'm sorry, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But for me to take my 10-year old and to go
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
be able to have that capability, absolutely, man. I think that that's phenomenal. But I think for me, in all of these bodies of water, to me it comes back to a word that is a niche word, and I'm not trying to change. I want Jeff to speak, but is a niche word that to me it comes back down to stability. And the
Mhm.
word stability is a trigger word in the kayak space. And we've done a good job the last 4 or 5 years of educating what that word means. Brian, I'll just take Bonafide, and I'm not throwing Bonafide under the bus at all. But when you came up and got in Bonafide's boat, that is a pontoon style boat designed by Hans. That is a phenomenal sailing boat. That 127 and that 107. Um, but the industry learned a lot after that boat got out to the masses, was able to see it is super stable. I mean, you can get on that boat and almost stand on one leg. You can move around. You can do, but that stability that you get so it's almost like a triangle, right? So when you give up, when you get extra of that stability, you lose something else, right? What you lose there is paddle ability. That playfulness is what gives you that ability to paddle and maneuver that boat to where that 127. Don't get me wrong, I love that boat. I still got 6 of them here. I flew that boat, flew the
Slow to
flag
turn.
for Bonafide for a long time. But that boat, it paddles like a dock. Like if I get that boat and I get my crew and I go out in the water, it's just two different platforms. The flip side of that, what I tell people all the time is,
Tell us what that means, though. Tell us what that means in normal terms, though. It paddles like a
so in
dock.
normal terms on that, people want, so I think, you're going to open a can of worms here with me,
Is it
and
hard
I'm
or
going to step on
easy?
some
That's all
toes.
they want to know. Is it harder or
I'm
easier
going
to turn?
It's way harder. So those
There you
pontoon
go.
boats
That's what they need to
is
hear.
way less manageable, way harder to maneuver, way harder to get going. If you are paddling and you're not spending the money on the motor and all that, you're not there yet. You're just getting into the sport. Just definitely
I have
more
a fun
work. More
analogy
work. Yeah. Go ahead.
for all of this.
Yeah.
So the boat, if I was going to a reservoir tomorrow, the boat that I would be in is actually no longer in production.
It was a
Why is a
Liberty.
boat no longer in production? It stopped selling, right? It's a Wilderness Systems Attack 140.
It's
It's
one
one
of
of
my
the
garage.
fastest boats, and for the time that it came out, it was a really wide, stable boat. So what we came
So,
from were these narrow boats, like, you know, like the tarpons, and that's why I like some of the boats that Crescent has come out with. Like the Light Tackle 2 reminds me of a Tarpon 120. Anyways,
no, it does.
we moved in the direction because of fear of flipping, because of fear of stability.
Cool.
We were in a point, I'm going to say 200 whatever 2006 through 2014-15 it started, where we just had performance boats. We had boats that paddled really well, right? And even with the pedal drives, your Hobie Revolution, that's a performance hull. It slices through the water, right? Um, we traded that in. Those are like a sport bike, right? If you're ripping around in a sport bike, you got to know how to lean into the turn, right? You have to develop some skills to do that. And because of fear, kayak fishing has stopped with the sport bike, and everyone's driving around in a trike thinking,
That's
I'm
what
a biker.
all boats are. To be
But
fair,
they're
all
not.
boats are. Bass boats are the same way. They're the biggest they've ever been. John boats now, like even aluminum boat market, to your point, every aluminum boat now has the aluminum boat that I own has a bigger deck than my bass boat. Everybody's trying to make everything big and stable. And it
So,
sounds like that
so
same thing
that
has transferred over into kayaks too.
So that word to me though, when we talk about stability in a boat, that stability for you, Brian, and me, Brian, in a kayak are going to be two totally different words. And we're guys who are
Mhm.
similar age, similar, keep taking care of ourselves. We're chasing babies all the time, but that's going to be two different things. Just because I live in a kayak every weekend, and and you go out, a couple times a month when you get out with the kids or going on a body water you can't get on. But stability is something totally different to my 82-year-old grandmother, totally different for my 11-year-old who's a cross country athlete and a
Yeah.
wrestler. Like it's like that. I mean, that's the word stability means different things, but what it
Mhm.
ultimately means in the kayak world, and let's give and Jeff, correct my education because I know you can. But so there's two different layers of stability in kayak manufacturing. There's what we call initial stability, which is when you step, you get that push back. That secondary stability is when you push to the side and hold, and what we call it locking into place, right? And each the hole. So when you get on these kayak manufacturers' websites and you see the undersides of these holes and you see those photos, being able to understand that hole and how it's designed to cut through the water, to hold your secondary stability position, or having that tail on the end, to be able to keep you to where you're my words leaving me, Jeff, to where you're not spinning in circles when you're paddling, to keep you on track, to keep your tracking right.
Sure.
To where if you're on a river and you go with like a Shoaly or an LT2 and you have a little bit of that bulbous nose, now when you're paddling up into an eddy, that water is now cutting that current is now cutting underneath your hole instead of pushing you around in a circle, kicking your nose out of the eddy. Again, the same thing that Jeff was talking about before. When he got his first boat in '98, it wasn't designed for fishing, and then you had a 5-year span where boats were designed for fishing because they took a wreck kayak and put a rod holder in it, and that was now a fishing boat. And to where now we've gone so far as like what the XTR is with these big motors, whatever. The guys instantly started taking them out, and now they're moving to gas motors, and we're seeing that transition. Crescent just put out a boat called a Crestcraft, and so like you take the XTR and some of the other models, those bolts don't have a what we call a planing hole. So when you in the big bass boat world get up on a plane, you know what that means, right? Well, in the kayak world, this is new education because we've never had a planing hole. Well, the Crestcraft is now that. It's designed to have a 6 horsepower motor on the back, and that boat will literally get up on a plane with a 6 horse and get me wherever I want to go on Gunnersville.
Got you.
So we talk about stability, and you were right, Scott. The terminology is primary and secondary. So that inflatable kayak is super wide, flat bottom, compressed gas doesn't want to go over 100% primary stability, right?
Yeah.
A boat that is narrower and it kind of has a more angular hull.
Yep.
A lot of the old town boats that are designed for big water are like that. Wilderness Systems made a Thresher. Jackson made the Kraken back in the day, but basically ones that are more less shaped like a surfboard and more shaped like an acorn almost, right?
Yeah.
Those are boats that you can edge. You can lean on the edge, and it does things for you in your paddling that improve your ability to turn the boat, right? So if you're doing whitewater, or if you're doing, even if you're doing offshore and you're coming in and you want to take it at an angle and almost surf it in, or just you're out in, like for me, in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay and there's a good rip and I just don't want to take a big wave over the bow, I angle into it and I can slide right through it and I stay dry because I can lean, I can edge the boat. A lot of what I teach in my on water classes is speed, angle, and lean. So if you have a boat that's 100% primary stability, you've eliminated your ability to edge the boat or to lean the boat. What I will tell you for the beginners, the best thing that you can do, you've already bought the boat, you went to the dealer, they educated you, you bought it, you found a way to transport it. Now it's your job, once it gets warm enough, flip it. Intentionally flip the thing.
Go
Figure out how you can get back in
You're off and know what it feels like. You get it like this and you think, uh-oh, it's going to go. No way. You're not flipping when it's like this. You got to get it almost like this, and you've learned that point of no return, boom, and then it goes. When you learn that, when you intentionally do that, two things happen. You stop being afraid of flipping because you've done it. You know where that point of no return is, but also you get to practice reboarding. And if you practice getting back in, you're going to learn that, hey, I can't put accessories all the way up the sides. I can't have my depth finder, anchor, torpedo, foot
Don't
steering.
wear an inflatable
no
life
way to get
jacket.
back in. You've created fencing around the whole perimeter. You're not getting back in there.
Yeah, try to get back in a kayak with an inflatable on.
How easy is it with inflatable? Is easy. It's like
with the inflatable life jacket.
No, it's not an inflatable life jacket. Yeah.
You can get back in it with an inflatable life jacket because that sucker.
I don't mean this ugly, and this. Some people will take this personal in our industry, but I personally, this is a personal opinion. In the kayak world, do not care for the inflatable life jackets whatsoever. It's just not my style. I just don't think they're as safe as they should be. And if heaven forbid, if I'm out there and actually have to have that thing, like I just I there's just something about the I'm an
Explosive.
NRS Chinook guy, and the Stolquist makes a great boat, makes a great jacket. But having that life jacket to me, you're going to go to it with accessories, and that's going to be in my number one. Number two is a comfortable life jacket that you will wear. But
Mhm.
I know that's something for you to get to. But the paddle and the PFD, you can go to a top three after that. I don't know if this is the time for you to transition or not, Be like, I'm not trying to take over your show here, but
No,
number
no,
one
no.
and number
This
two
is
are
your show.
definitely paddle and PFD. PFD number one is definitely the number one thing you have to have. I would be budgeting if I was making a budget for my kayak. I would be budgeting going, hey, I have to have this PFD. I actually bought my first kayak. I bought an NRS Chinook because of Jeff and because of Chad and Gene and these other guys that I watched for years before me. I actually owned that for a couple months before I ever bought the kayak itself because I knew that was what was important to me. I just it's just
on
a
on the PFD thing, way back when, early 2000s, I was part of the Maryland Bass Federation as a non-boater. Mostly we did tournaments on the Tidal Potomac, right? And I learned what was customary is like, okay, we're going to fire up the big motor, put your life jacket on. And then you get there and everyone takes it off, right? Put the trolling motor down, take your life jacket off, and, all right, we're going to go somewhere. All right, put it back on. And at some point during the couple of years that I did those tournaments locally at the state level, I kept wearing the life jacket because I was kayak fishing at the same time, and it became such a part of like, this is my toolkit. Everything I need is
Mhm.
here. And if I stand up, I lean back on the pedestal. I want the line clippers here. I want the pliers here.
yep.
I want, I know that this is the jig. So I got two of them here. If I break off, it's just tie it back on and go. So, and the guys who look like, hey, you don't need to wear that. Why are you still wearing it? And I have other guys that like, I went out on one of our Baltimore reservoirs in New Year's Eve. We went out and did some blade bait fishing. And a kayak angler and that was an electric only John boat. Um, we just we still try to treat it like a kayak. Like halfway
Mhm.
through the day, I'm sitting down on the back deck, and my buddy Matt is looking at me like, "Why are you
Hang on. Let me get
tired?
that.
Tired?"
Let
I'm
me
like,
entice
"No,
the
this
viewer.
is how I get good casting angles. Like I have to get low."
Mhm.
If you guys have never met Jeff Little, he's 6'5", 6'6". So if he's sitting on the back deck of this boat, like that's a visual of him casting sitting on the back deck of this John boat.
Yeah.
He is a Tarzan mountain of a man. So
Yeah.
yeah, hilarious.
Brian the
Yep.
carpenter made fun of me. I was on his electric John boat, like Upper Bay, and I stood up after sitting down, and he didn't say anything, but he starts like rocking the boat to like see if I sit back down, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me, man. He's like,
Yeah.
why you sit down all day? What are you doing? I'm like, casting
I'm
angles. I'm
I'm a kayak
happy.
angler, man. Yeah. Yep.
I got to be lower to the water.
I hear you.
Yep.
I hear
I
you.
like those lines. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'll take some of our kayak guys skipping a bait over some of those bass boat guys. There's a few that there's just something about being at that low angle of that water, man. I've seen Christine run a bait just I mean well into the back of a boat chute that I'm like, there's no way that doesn't even make sense. When you're skipping a
yeah,
chatterbait 11 times before it hits the back of that hole, like what? It's gnarly.
yeah, yeah. So with that being said, like even talking about how you sat down, so I heard Jeff, you mentioned the Wilderness Systems, one of their boats. Would that be one of the boats that you use for rivers? What's your favorite boat for a river, your favorite boat for a reservoir, and favorite one for crescent for a creek?
So I
What would be your
do.
three?
I
Just
also
your three
fish
boats.
the Chesapeake Bay for striped bass. And if I'm doing a reservoir trip, like I fished Dwarshack back in the spring, and I brought that Hobie Pro Angler when I came back from it. Like it took on too much water, and I'm like, I'm switching back. Like I'm happier in that Attack 140. Um, I put the
Attack
forward
140.
facing.
What boat is that? Who builds that?
It's a Wilderness Systems Attack 140,
Wilderness systems.
and
Yep.
and you have to search out and find one used
Mhm.
Yeah,
because
that's
they
that
stopped
they don't
making them.
manufacture. Yeah, they don't manufacture that particular boat anymore. Honestly, I would say the closest thing to that manufactured today, Jeff. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased in that LT2. Maybe that RVR.
Who are these?
But
Tell us the brands. We don't know who you're talking
all
about.
right, yeah. So the LT2 is a light tackle two, built and designed by Crescent Kayaks. The RVR is a boat built by Bonafide Kayaks. But even those, I mean, they're definitely not like Jeff is the old school in selling it there in that Attack 140. I bought one of those from Music City last time I was up there and saw Greg because he had one sitting there and they're so hard to find.
Okay.
But you talking about the rivers and stuff like that. I'm gonna name drop here, but Drew Gregory is in the kayak world. People know who Drew Gregory is. Like, I mean, he's one of the best guys in the fishing space as a competitor, as a human being, as a whatever. Very knowledgeable. Multiple national championships, Bass Pro championships, KBF championships, the whole 9 yards. But he helped co-design the Shoaly, and in moving waters. It took me about a year to really understand it. And when I call it a Ferrari, I call it a Ferrari not for speed, but for performance. And what
What
that
boat
boat
is this?
does, it's
What
it's
is
a
it?
it's a it's a Crescent Shoaly, like the shoal
Crescent
bass
Shoaly.
Shoaly. Yep. Jeff's got one. And it in moving water, it is just a performance boat in ways that very few. It's still a kayak and not a boat. You agree with me that, right, Jeff? In the way that we're designing boats nowadays.
It is, but I was so excited with both the RVR and the Shoaly is that we've made that move back towards performance. Now it isn't
Correct.
necessarily
Correct.
speed performance, but it's
No.
maneuverability performance
Correct.
in in moving water, in rivers, river fishing,
Yes.
river RVR, Shoaly, it's a river fish.
Yep.
That is exciting. Like that is something that, hey, we've moved, from sport bike to trike, and now we're moving back to sport bike. We have this boat that is specialized for a specific fishery, which is great.
So this
My
Wilderness
my
Systems
favorite for river
140.
fishing is the one that I designed, and it when I have people take my kayak fishing classes, like they go out and they learn eddy turns and peel outs and one hand paddling technique and how to run rapids and all of this safety and maneuverability stuff. I put them in the Innovative Sportsman Osprey 1436,
This
and
is for
that's an
Osprey
inflatable 1436.
Sport.
Yep.
It
That's
has
made
the
by Innovative
same,
Sportsman.
yeah.
It's an inflatable, and that's a bad rig. Yeah.
Okay. And this is for like rivers. You say you would use that for?
Rivers, any shallow water fisheries,
Okay.
like you could use it for inshore, it'd be great. It'd be a great. We have redfish in Maryland, but I don't get down and fish them. But like to take that Gulf Coast and like go after the redfish down there it'd be perfect
Yeah.
because it's so shallow. Like
Right.
if it's just moist there, you can go.
Yeah. The draft on that boat, because it's the inflatable, the draft, and for folks that don't know, if you're really new and you don't know what draft is how shallow that boat can go, the depth of water that boat could get in. And all of those inflatables, like I said, the two boats that the Ospreys that Innovative Sportsman is doing, they're just, I mean, there's nothing that's drafting as shallow as those, including our boat, the Shoaly, and some of the others that do have a great, shallow draft. They're just they're that inflatable market, like I said, and we're seeing a turn in that now. I mean, I think we're in the middle of it right now, where that inflatable market is starting to compete with the kayak market because of the education that Trey's doing, that Jeff's doing, that these other companies, the innovation they're putting into building these inflatables. We've come full circle now, but building these inflatables to where they're actually used for the purposes of the way they were. The same way that you took your first kayak out, Jeff, and it wasn't built and designed for what you wanted it to do, and you started doing it, was the same thing that you're saying that, 15 years later, you're now doing it in the inflatable scene.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell me about this though, with the inflatable, with it not really drafting hardly any water. One of my pet peeves, just with kayaks in general, but I can imagine it being even harder with an inflatable since it doesn't draft water, is a big thing for me is not necessarily stability, but fishability. So when I point my boat right here and I get even the slightest breeze, and now I'm pointed this way, I'm pissed about that. When I point my boat this way or that way, I want it to stay right here and not move. And so I can imagine with inflatable, even though you can float a lot shallower, it's probably harder to keep that boat. I guess it really is stable, but pointed in the same direction you left it, which to me that goes in that
Great,
category of fishability.
great, great
Yep.
question, and great insight. And yeah, the wind does push you more in an inflatable
Yeah, I
because you sit
hate
on
that.
top of the water instead of down in
Mhm.
it.
Saddle down in
Yep.
it. No footprint is the way I refer to it. Bass boats is the
You
same way.
two
So a lot of
anchors.
people think that bass
I do
anglers use
two anchors.
big boats. You need two anchors. Yeah, I have two anchors. I have one on the front, one on the back. My big engine, and then I have my trolling motor. If you pull either one of those up, the boat wants to do weird things, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But I call that footprint. It's the same thing with bass boats. The bigger the boat is, the further it's down in the water, the more fishable it is. And like you hear these skiff guys in saltwater. Oh, my boat's float on spit and it does this. And I'm like, yeah, but it also it blows around like a fart on the water. Like
Yep.
it never stays put. I don't like that. So I think there's a give and take with both of those. Like, how shallow do you
There,
really need to get? You know, that sounds cool.
So when
well, it depends
river
on
fishing, it's more about how often you're in and out of the boat. And
Mhm.
I think we
correct.
look at it and say we need the shorter boat with a smaller footprint and it sits deeper, but it's more maneuverable. And that's great when you have spring flow, but most of the year you have lower flow. And when you go from and I actually I got an average by asking a bunch of people on a survey on Facebook. Like, look at your mud line on your kayak and measure it. Lay it on the concrete in your garage and measure that. And the on rotomolded boats, the lowest number was 5, and the highest number was 9.5. So, like,
Inches.
call it 7 inches.
Okay.
7 inches of draft in a kayak, roughly. I start rubbing at 2 1/8 in the inflatable. What that does when you float a shallow river is you don't have to get in and out. You don't have to run
Mhm.
aground.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Let's keep moving.
And yes, I use two anchors. I fish all winter. I need that boat to be totally stopped to feel that subtle bite of the finesse jig or whatever it is. Because if the wind is blowing it around and I have slack in the line, I don't feel the bite. So I
Right.
double anchor.
Right.
Well,
I also
I'm a
wedge on
two anchor.
things.
I'm a two anchor guy too, and one of the other thing is a secret weapon that I think river anglers know it a good bit, but a lot of folks don't. And that's kind of the audience that we're talking to here. Drag chains is something that I use a lot on the river,
Mhm. I did
and just to a to slow me down and allow me to fish at a speed I want to fish in, but also b to keep me focused on and to keep me from turning where I'm wanting to go. But I'm definitely, you talk about rigability and we're talking about accessories. I'm an anchor wizard guy through and through. I run a one on the bow and one on the stern, and I run them on left and right sides, and I'm fully a two anchor guy as well. And like if I'm out on bigger water, I will take my power pole micro anchor, and even if I'm fishing in deeper water and that wind is kicking you, even just
drag it.
dropping that pole where it's not touching anything, but it gives you that drag on the back of the
Yeah.
boat. I'll drop an 8 foot power pole in 30 feet of water if I'm throwing an ounce and a half spinner bait and putting it on the bottom, because in our world we're not throwing crankbaits at 30 feet down because you can't get it down because it'll pulls the boat to you. But I'll
Scott,
throw an ounce and a half. Go ahead.
make sure we tell people when we say drag chain, they're not going to know. Everybody's not going to know what we're talking about. Can explain what that is and why we're using that. I know
Yeah,
what you're
so
talking
I
about.
literally I wish it's in the garage. I wish I had it with me. So I literally have a section of chain that I bought at Lowe's, Home Depot, any of these hardware stores. and it's heavy duty chain. It's almost like what you would tow a car with or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And mine's a 3 foot section that I have doubled over, and I have taken mine and put it in. What's the infomercial where they paint the bottom of the screen of the
The rubber
John boat?
stuff, yeah, that rubber paint
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
rubber sealant or whatever, Flex Seal. I have mine
Mm-hmm.
running Flex Seal just so that way it doesn't get caught up and it's banged up and it's a lot quieter. But I run mine on the back of on the Shoaly kayak. It's got two troughs, if you will, that allow that chain to come up and down off the back of the boat. Any kayak will do it, but that's boat's designed for it. The RVR has a similar design off the rear too, I do believe. But what it does is you basically let that. If I'm fishing in 5 feet of water and it's rain season and current's moving pretty good, I want to be able to control the speed of how I'm descending down this river and how I fish, so I can make sure I'm fishing this nook. You're looking at that rock, I see this down tree, and so I will drop that drag chain and allow it to drag the bottom. Not only does it keep me in line, but it slows me down, and you're in control of how, like, the speed of that. However long you let that line out or you let that drag chain go behind you, will slow you, will give you your gas pedal, if you will, of how fast you're moving in that water. And for me, the Rhino, the Flex Seal and stuff like that keeps it from really getting hung up on rocks and branches and stuff like that. It gives it some ability for where if I do get caught up, I can give it a good tug and it pulls up out of there or whatever.
So
Yep.
safety on anchors or drag chains. Brian almost died in, I think it was 2000 on the Potomac River, and my buddy saved me by paddling upstream, T-boning me, and cutting a stuck anchor line. I really thought I was going to
Correct.
die that day. You
Yeah.
got to have the knife, the sheath knife on your PFD, and you have to have your anchor set up such that you can reach it and cut that line if you need to jettison the anchor to save your life.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would love to preference this too. Like, in no world are, and with this was a problem as the 5 6 years ago as this kayak industry grew. And I'll just throw Drew Gregory under the bus again. Drew Gregory is a seasoned river angler. He's going in these backwoods and doing these things. His body, the way he's prepared, like, he is built to go do these things. I don't mean this ugly, but you take Joe Smo off the couch that's eating that that is a little Debbie connoisseur, and they try to go do some of these things. Like, it is like they're like being on any moving body of water. You're not going to beat moving water. You're not stronger than moving water. I'm sorry.
No.
So Jeff's
No.
100% correct. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get your newbies out with a drag chain, and like, it's like there's learning lessons to go with all this, and safety is number one. And he's absolutely right. I keep that same NRS knife on my vest, and to where if I've not been in that situation yet, and I spend a lot
I
of
mean,
time on moving water.
I've
Scott,
used the
why
drag
are you
chain.
picking on
I've
little
used the
Debbie,
drag
man?
chain in just calm water though. I use the drag chain in calm water because it's just a
Yeah,
rudder to slow
correct.
that front end from moving around. So I think if
Nope,
you
hundred
don't know
percent.
what a drag chain is, like just adding a little piece of chain to the front of your kayak will keep that nose just from wandering around so much. So when you put it in a straight line, it stays there. So yeah, but in moving water situation, I don't know. I did use it when I fished with Drew, but I don't think I would. I, I don't think most of our listeners are probably going to be using quite that intense uh, water right now.
Well, I also don't want to scare people from drag chains either. Like, drag chains, they've been around
Mm.
forever. I know guys that throw up that have a bucket, literally a Lowe's bucket that's got holes drilled in it, and I mean they literally dump it off the back to slow them down. I mean, there's parachutes, there's all types of things out there that folks have created to fish how they want to fish. And to going back to why kayak fishing exists, is that you can build it, whether you're building a boat, whether you're building your setup for, you can build it for your body of water, how you're going to fish, the speed of what you want to fish. I think that's what makes kayak fishing so special and so unique. Is that, yeah, me and Jeff may have the same Shoaly set up, the same boat, but the way that we have it rigged and set up for his body of water up north and mine down here in the southeast can be two totally different setups. And it just, with all of these kayak manufacturers, I think what makes it so attractive is that you get to build a boat for how you're going to fish, for your body type, your athletic ability, your stability, how you're going to use it on and off of your truck or your trailer. And I think that's why kayak fishing has exploded the way
Yeah,
that it has over the last 10 or 15 years, is that it's personal. You're building it the way you're going to use it.
modular. Right, it's
Yeah,
very
correct.
modular.
Modular. Yep.
Yeah, let's jump to this next thing because we're kind of diving into it anyway, so we might as well do it, Mike. Let's hit to our accessories. I mean, we've been talking about it the whole time, so we might as well go ahead and just nip the bud in the nipple. You know what I mean? So
But we're
obviously,
taking
I'm
life
not.
jacket and paddle off the table, right? That's
Yeah,
a staple. You have to have that.
yeah. So let's talk about. I'm getting into kayaks, and obviously, when you buy a kayak, you just get in a boat. There's got a lot of stuff that you need to buy. Tell me, what can I spend my best $1,000 once I buy a kayak? It might not be 1,000, maybe it's $500. It might be 250, but I think $1,000 is more realistic. If I bought a kayak, where would I need to spend my first $1,000 at next?
Are
You
we
ready?
taking motors off the table, Jeff, for $1,000?
I think that's a whole separate subject.
Yeah, I agree.
Personally,
Okay.
I think that's a whole another
I
bullet
want to
point.
hear
It could
yours,
be
I'm
Jeff.
gonna I'm gonna start with a dry bag.
dry bag. Cool.
A
Love it.
dry bag
Love
is gonna save you from needing to get a new phone.
Yeah.
it.
A dry bag is going to save you from getting in a hypothermic situation. If you fish early in the spring, even though it's a 73-degree day and you're like, it's beautiful out, that water temperature is still 54, you
Mm,
fall in, you're going to need
Dunzo.
a nice set of dry clothes to put on.
All right.
You know, there's a lot of different things you're going to need in a dry bag. And the ones I'm using, I like it's called a company in North Carolina called Watershed. They actually make them for like some tactical ones for the military. They make them with like gun cases and all of the guys that do a lot of the videography on the water. Um, use the Watershed because they open really quick. But Yak Attack makes some great ones. NRS. There's a lot of good dry bags out there, so you don't have to spend a lot to save yourself the cost of buying a new phone and having your stuff get wet that you don't want wet. But you need to, when it's still cool out, you got to have a set of dry clothes to save you from hypothermia. Throw a first aid kit in there too, please.
Yep. Yeah,
So that's
I
two.
like a dry
One
bag
more. You
for
got
the.
one more.
Yep.
A bag, medical kit. What's the third one?
I just used up
Third
the
thing.
first aid kit on one of them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then that can go in our dry bag. All right. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Yak Attack sells one with it's already a combo. Um, so when I get my hands on a new prototype inflatable, the mandatory thing that I need to put on there is the Anchor Wizard, and I like their anchor. Anchor Wizard makes a really good anchor that doesn't get stuck. Um, and then rod holders. I
Yeah.
mean, I can put three rods in front of me, but they get all tangled up, and I like to have horizontal rod storage pointing backwards,
okay.
right? Um,
Especially in moving water.
yeah, three's
Okay.
three's hard to nail it down to, man. I still don't have a box to put all my tackle in, but I get pretty creative with that.
If you bought a kayak, you should have a box by now.
Yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
You
I
should
think
have some
he's talking
tackle in
about a
something.
crate or a backpack is what he's talking
Yeah.
about. He's talking about a crate or a black bag, like
Yeah, like a
kayak
true
specific designed
kayak
storage.
tackle box. Yeah,
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 yeah, correct, exactly.
yeah. I get it.
I'm my 1, 2, 3 I think are relatively easy. I don't have the actual product, but I have the product on another design here. But this, I mean, don't get me wrong, this double header is fantastic. But this roto grip right here, let me see if I'm pointing to the right one here. So this roto grip right here is it comes in its own thing. It's called a roto grip by Yak Attack, and for me, this is your paddle sits down in here. This screws onto your track, and to me, this is one of the number one accessories just because of having safe storage to be able to set that down off of my lap because I am still a kayak guy. My paddle lives in my lap. So if I'm setting the hook and I've got to stand or I've got to set it back down quickly after I set the hook and I want my hands on my rod, I want to be able to put to put that paddle down and lock it into a position. I keep these in two different ways. I keep two sets. I keep a set on this side where I go down with my left hand and snap it. Excuse me, and with my right hand and snap it in because I reel right-handed. So I snap that paddle down where it goes long ways alongside in the length of my boat. but I also have two in front of me that sit across from me. So if I go to stand up quickly, when I stand up, I'm putting that paddle down, locking it into place, and helping push myself up to stand to set a hook or to make a cast or to make a pitch. And to me, and then these also work for me in a little bit of rod management. If I'm doing if I miss a hook set, I'm not the angler that you two gentlemen are, so I miss a lot of bites. And so a lot of times if I snatch that too late or too early or whatever, and I miss that fish, I throw that rod back down in my deck and I go back with a follow up bait into that same spot. And it's easy for me to set that rod back down into with this roto grip handle. The butt of my rod goes right back down in here too and kind of secures it, locks it in, so I'm not losing that that $1,000 setup or $800 setup over the side of the kayak. Kayak management and how you do this stuff in a small space is definitely where you want your accessories to shine. In that, I'll second what you said. In that, I just don't think anybody that's kayak fishing and doing it for real, an anchor wizard is definitely something that guys are using. Like I said, I use two of them, especially on my bigger boats and even on my river boats. A lot of times, if I'm gonna eddy up in and fish today, I'll drop it off the front, or if I'm running drag chains, I'll drop it off the rear. Anchor Wizard is just second to none in the industry. They've been around a long time. I know that Yak Attack is building a product right now that's got one that's coming out that's going to be competitive with it as well. But you need to be able to position yourself in a kayak to where you can make the right approach, so you can make the right presentation, which I hear BLAT talk about all the time, making the presentation to the fish so you can get that fish to bite and get him in the boat. And to me, that makes a big difference. My third accessory is for sure a way to show off the size of that fish, and that's the catch measuring board. Like the boards that we use in kayak. So in the bass boat world, y'all go by pounds. In the
Mhm.
kayak fishing world, we go by inches of fish. And so a catch measuring board is one of those things where I like if I'm going to brag to my buddies and show off on Instagram, or where I'm not posting that dreaded sunset of, oh, what a beautiful sunset. Y'all know what that means. It means you got skunked, right? And so
Right.
so I like that catch board to me to be able to show off. Nah, man, this was a 22 and a quarter. I smoked your 19. You know what I mean? Don't be coming to me with that trash, because we go by inches, not by poundage. You know what I mean? So for you guys, a 20-pound bag is kind of like that's kind of the staple, right? Like that's kind of where you want to be. That's you had a great day. For us, that's 100 inches in our five fish, which would be five 20-inch fish. That's kind of like, hey, that's kind of that centennial mark of that's what a good day is. And the best measuring board in the game is by far catch. And I wouldn't be on my kayak anytime fishing without a catch board.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So yours is the what did you call that first piece? What was it?
It's
Is
a
a
it's
roto
a roto grip. Yep. It's a roto
roto
grip
grip.
made by Kayak Attack. Yep, roto grip.
Okay.
And
Roto
The
grip
whole thing's a
wizard.
double header.
yeah, the whole thing here is called a double header, and it
Okay.
sits in your track. And like I was just talking about, where that paddle just locks in and goes across, this is designed as an accessory that sits in your track. And so when I stand up, you see how those line up. My paddle just snaps right down inside here, and it's off the side of the boat, out of the way, not taking up space when I'm trying to land a fish with a net, or I'm trying to take a picture on the catch board. Like this double header, this accessory in itself. But again, the double header is an accessory to the roto grip. The roto grip to me is the key, and it's all designed on how you want to use it. But like we
Yeah.
talked about before, being modular, Yak Attack is the king of what kayak anglers call Legos. I mean, you can put a cup holder on top of this. I mean, there is so many different ways to use the packaging, to use the tools that come in this orange and black packaging. That this is just, I mean, they're second to none in the space for that reason.
Yep. So you got that deal right there. It's the Anchor Wizard, and then the last one was a oh god, I
The
forgot that quick.
the, the catch board.
Catchboard. Catchboard. That's where you're
Yep.
spending your money first. Perfect. Perfect. Let's see, guys. Y'all want to take questions? We're going to talk about motors. Maybe we need to hold that one to the next for another live. Let's catch these questions, Mike, and then we'll call it good here. So we're running over already. I saw a lot of talk about life jackets, and people wanted to know what kind of life jackets you guys recommend.
I think we're both rocking the NRS Chinook.
Yeah, we're
NRS
gonna
Chinook.
agree. The Stonequist makes a great life jacket as well, but I'm an NRS Chinook guy through and through. I own about 20 of them. It seems like.
Okay, let's see what else do we got here. Do you see anything else, Michael? That was one I saw pop up a bunch about the life jacket. I didn't see trash.
Yeah, that was the only real question I saw
Yeah.
in there. I think.
Life jacket's crucial. If you're getting out on a kayak, life jacket's crucial. It's funny, Brian, because I know we talk about this and we're parents, and not that Jeff's not, but his kids are older than ours. They're kind of doing their own thing now as he's getting ready to be an empty nester. But like us having the smalls, like it's so funny, man. Like me not being, I'm kind of an anti-establishment guy. Like I'm not a fan of, like I'm an adult. Like I don't want to these seatbelt laws, like blah blah motorcycle helmet laws. I'm a Harley guy. Like I don't want, like I'm kind of anti that. But dude, you put me in a kayak on the water, and I'm a life jacket guy through and through, especially in moving water, man. Yep. Yeah, I got babies to come home too. Yeah.
Yeah. People always say, "Well, I'm a good swimmer. Let me see you swim across the lake."
Yeah. No, you're not.
No. Swim across the cove, Barry. Let's see how good you are then. You think you can swim? You're in a pool. In a pool, that don't count.
No chance.
I had have a buddy, Chuck Earls, who's a kayak fishing guide up on Lake Erie, who had a client. Who had a client? It's his client. He goes out and he teaches people and they catch walleye, but out of the kayak. His client said, I'll bring the life jacket, but I'm not going to wear it. He's like, that's great. That's great. Listen, we just got to do one thing before we start. I want you to go ahead and jump in there, and I'll throw your life jacket to you, and I want to see you put it on. If you can do that, I'm good with you not wearing it. And he kind of laughed. He's like, and he was arrogant about it. He's like, fine, I'll do it. I'll play your game. And a dude jumps in. Chuck throws the life jacket to him, and it took him like 10 minutes to really get it on and get it zipped and get it buckled. And he comes out and he's like, I'll wear
it. I'm in a gym 5 days a week. I love a gym. There's even treading water for 3 minutes is brutal.
Yeah, no, man. I know. And see, nobody ever factors in when you fall in, it's a surprise.
100%.
When you're swimming, you're doing that on purpose. When you're fishing 100%. And you're in the water, that is a surprise. And the first thing you do when you fall in the water is go, and you're full of water.
Heaven forbid an anchor line or a bait line ties up or a rod catches your heel. A rod tied right around your boot and sinking. That little, 90-ounce rod that you're throwing will feel like an anchor quickly.
It'll feel like an anchor, bro. It will feel like an anchor. Nobody's been realistic. Most of the time it's from people that's never really fallen in before. But if you've ever fallen in, and what I mean by falling in, it's like you're fishing and the next thing you know, you're on the side of the boat like this, you'll get a respect for the water really, really fast.
Even in a bass boat, wasn't it? Even in a bass boat, was it? I mean, Ike and Ellie's in good shape. Mike's in good shape. And he went off the bow of his a couple years ago. And it's a fight getting back in because when that surprise hits you, like you said, that shock hits your body, especially in cold water.
Yes. Yeah. I fell in the summer on the St. Lawrence with moving water. And I mean, it happens fast. First thing you do is scares you as soon as you hit the water. It's cold. You're not thinking about it. You got a rod in your hand. So like the fact that you can swim is irrelevant here. It's not the same thing. You're not consciously jumping in the water. So yeah, I highly recommend it, especially in a kayak, because it'll get away from you even faster. With the bass boat, I was lucky. It's more stable. It stays there. But a kayak, when you fall out of it, most likely when you fall, you push the boat away from you. And so you're instantly separated from it. So I think it's very, very wise to have not an inflatable on. I don't recommend inflatables for that.
I agree. I'm a full life jacket supporter, 100%.
Yeah. Hey, while you're talking about, I think somebody asked about dry suits. Earlier,
I saw that. I see a bunch of them dropping in now.
Destiny brought up from her Coast Guard the cold water and really harping on nobody's a good swimmer in freezing cold water, but what dry suit?
Most of us cold water is going to be 70 and cooler, not 50. You jump in 70-degree water, it feels like ice.
I go over the rule of 120 in one of my videos. It's actually one of the videos I have on my Uscreen channel. It's the little stuff on Uscreen. It's one of the ones I put out there that's free. You don't have to subscribe to get it because it's really important information, but it's a pre-trip safety checklist, and we go over the rule of 120, which is basically if the air temperature plus the water temperature combined are less than 100 degrees or 120 or less, you need to be wearing a dry suit. There's a
Say
bunch
that
of other
again.
things.
Yeah,
Say it
this
again.
this is big, Blat. Yeah.
Say this again.
If the air temperature and the water temperature combined are less than 120 degrees, you need to be wearing a dry suit. Because if you're
Yep.
not wearing a dry suit and you go in, you're going to have the involuntary gasp, which means you go in your face. If it's below the surface of the water, that's the beginning of drowning.
Yep. 100%.
Hypothermia sucks. I've experienced it
Sucks.
myself on land
Sucks. Yes.
while camping on the Upper Potomac on a week-long camping kayak fishing float trip, and really had this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that said you're about to die, go do something, and you can't, and your limbs aren't working the right way, and you can't operate a lighter or hold a knife to carve down to dry wood, and you just, oh, it's horrible. It was one of the worst experiences in my life. That's why I have a dry suit, and I talked about the dry bag where you keep a full set of dry clothing. I have a fire starting kit there that makes it easy to start a fire, like really quick, some good cheater things. It's actually some of what I teach in my winter kayak fishing classes. We do some training on, okay, we're going to start a fire. And there's your shoreline, grab your dry bag with your kit, go make a fire. Because that's what's going to pull you out of hypothermia.
Hey, Brian, I'm gonna chime in and because this is a pet peeve of mine. My aviation background in the military. On the big boats, dry suits. I think that whole rule 120 is something for people to really consider, because wearing all the clothes that you go deer hunting in, out on your big boat, you fall in, you won't float. That's always
I
it's
was
worth at
the
least
first
discussing.
First of all, you got
2001.
to teach us. We're saying dry suit. I don't know what that is. As long as I've been around the fishing industry, if I know what it is, I'm pretty sure most of the people in the group don't know what a dry suit is.
So it is a full, it's a waterproof onesie.
Gotcha.
It's got a latex gasket at the neck and both wrists so that you fall in, your head and your hands get wet. That's it. You got a little zipper right down there, so if you gotta
Yeah.
pee, you can relieve yourself, but that's about it.
Let me look for this.
That
I
is a
want to
dry
find one.
suit.
I've
Yeah.
never heard this before.
Yeah, so it's funny because to hear Matt chime in on that, talk about safety and everything else, like it's one of those things that, like, again, this rule, to hear you, Brian, be in this world as long as you have and not know that 120
Sure.
rule. Well, and even that. So here's what I'll challenge you and the bass boat guys too. Like when you're out in these colder waters, and I guess it's not as permanent because you guys do have that big motor and could get in the way and could jump up and go. But if
You're
you're
fishing
45 minutes
someone
from your
too.
boat ramp. Correct, but if you're 45 minutes from your boat ramp and you fall in the water and the water temperature is 35 and it's 50 outside, like if you don't have a change of clothes on that boat,
Dunzo.
like I think that's why people, and I think people are gonna, I think people when people are listening to this for the first time through and they hear Jeff say a dry bag with a change of clothes or whatever. Well, he lives in an area of the country that's predominantly cold 9 months of the year, and that is a life safety thing, the same way that a life jacket is. And I challenge your peers and the guys in the bass boat world that why do you not have a towel and a change of clothes on your bass boat when you're fishing when that's not 120? Yes, you can run and gun 45 minutes back, but I know
It's
a
gonna
lot of
hurt.
you guys like being at 100% and and at 70 miles an hour on the water and you're freezing cold, like you're gonna start feeling hypothermia quickly.
Yeah. I don't know if you could make it. Like today, this
Yeah.
morning it was 26. I don't think you'd make it back.
So well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I love guys like Jeff in this industry that have the knowledge and have the ability, because they actually care to educate on areas that they've seen, they've been. He's been around kayak anglers for since kayak angling started, and he's watched these guys struggle in and out of boats and get cold and whatnot. And so, well, it takes one time for you to do that. And I promise you, you have that dry bag with clothes next time if you're able to survive it.
Or if you're able to
I've
survive
done
it,
a lot
yeah,
of the
100%.
dumb stuff myself, like the anchor thing without the knife and the hypothermia and not understanding what a strainer is. And I'm like,
Strainer's a whole
I
other
did most
topic.
of
I
it in
know.
my early 20s where I was more likely to survive than I would now at 50. So,
I,
Right.
I would challenge that, B lad. I mean, and I don't mean to be ugly, like whatever, but like when we talk about a strainer on a river, do you know what that means, B lad? As a guy who's
A
been on
strainer,
rivers and fishing,
have no clue what you're talking about. First of all,
it's
I
a
so a
never go
strainer.
on
strainer is
rivers. I never go on rivers unless it's summertime. You would never catch me on the river in the winter. But still, I'm curious to know what it is. Have no clue what you're talking about.
It's a lay down.
that's
It's basically a
it's
tree, and
correct.
if it's anything that the river and its water will pass through, but you and your boat will not, and it's something that if you flip and it pushes you up against it, you might not get out of there alive.
I know
So
exactly
if
what
so
you're
if
talking about.
this
I've done it a bunch of times
yeah
because it's
so
essentially
so if
aluminum
this is
boat.
yeah so if this is a tree running across the body of water, right, and all those tree
Hmm.
branches are hanging down, if you capsize underneath this tree and all these limbs are hanging underneath there, that water is pushing through and is going to keep you the same way a strainer
Pin.
keeps the pasta in your sink, and the water keeps going through. That's going to keep you pinned, and it's the number one injury. It's the number one killer on bodies of water. Not only is it a killer, but because of those strainers are so strong, they often don't find the bodies because they stay pinned under there until they decompose enough. I'm not going to get gross, but until they
Yeah.
can decompose enough to finish pushing you through those limbs. But a strainer in the areas of kayak fishing that we fish, a strainer is the number one killer. If you go
Mm.
underneath in a strainer and you get pinned, I don't care life jacket or not, you're having a very it's impossible without a life jacket. With a life jacket, you have a little bit of an advantage to kind of get back up out of that. But a strainer is very dangerous. When we take our trips in the summer with our kids and everything else, we host trips with 40 people, no exaggeration. And oftentimes, me and the wife, or even my kids now, my oldest is 13. He's a pro guide on most of the rivers that we summer on for recreational kayaking, not fishing, so to speak. And they all know like where our strainers are, know what to watch for a new one, and they help educate and we guide. We have an entire little assembly and a safety class, if you will, like we would in the military before we go out, and we discuss and teach trainers because it is definitely one of those things that will get you in the kayak space for sure.
Right. Let's so I got another question in here about the type of anchors. He says I think it was Chris Waters. I lost it there. My eyes got discombobulated. It says does the type of anchor matter?
I got opinions on this. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I do a lot of river fishing, and I really like the Anchor Wizard anchor. But
Okay.
if you take that Anchor Wizard anchor, which is a chunk of lead with its kind of four leaf clover shaped with a little cone shape, but it's either a 4 or 6 pound chunk of lead with like dipped in plastidip or whatever. If you take that and try to use it inshore, Gulf Coast states, and the wind is ripping, and you just want to stay on that spot where you have your redfish there, it ain't gonna do you any good. It's not gonna grab, right?
Okay.
You need one of those kind of claw type anchors. Conversely, if you take that claw type anchor and put it on the river, you're going to be cutting that line off and jettisoning that anchor like in the first half of the day. So it depends on the fishery. The ones that are kind of claw shaped are good for the sand because as you start to drag, they dig down
Deep.
into the sand, right?
Right.
The ones that are like the cannonball shape, or in the case of the Anchor Wizard anchor one, are great for the river.
Okay. Got you.
Yep.
That's good to
So
know
I
because I
I
didn't
use
know that.
two different types as well. I use the bomb shape. I like it, especially off the bow. The bomb company makes one that is, I believe it's tungsten because it's super compact and like an 8 pound ball. But I like it. I leave it off the front handle of my kayak with my Anchor Wizard, and it just kind of dangles there. So when I need it, it rolls up. I don't use the Anchor Wizard chute that they use. It's just not. It just doesn't. I don't need it for how I fish. But then there's also a diver's anchor, which is basically that same type of ball but has a fin on the top of it. And I use those as well, and I like those because the way I rig that one, and I wish I had one to show you, but that divers has got 2 points of tie off space. So the way I do mine is I tie off at the top point, and then I loop it back down to the bottom eyelet on that diver's anchor, if you will. And if it was to get stuck or where you have an issue and you can't get it up, a lot of times what I'll do is you have I have run a zip tie around back up to the other top, and you can pop that zip tie with enough force. And when you do that, it enables that dive anchor to rotate in the water because now you're pulling it from another side, another point on that anchor, if you will. And it gives me the leverage while I'm not losing that anchor. I can pop that zip tie with enough force, and now I'm pulling force on the other side of the anchor to get me out of rocky beds and stuff like that. So that's the two that I use.
Perfect. You know what the first anchor most people use is?
Mine is a kettlebell weight, 5 pound kettlebell weight.
Yeah,
sure.
Dumbbell. The little rubber ones at Walmart. Yeah.
Yeah, it might even be in here somewhere. I got a 5 pound kettlebell weight. That's what I got on my Anchor Wizard.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first one was the round plate. I had the little round plate that you would put on a weightlifting bar. That was my first anchor.
Yeah. That, I mean,
you played against sports, buddy, in 2001.
Yeah, that's what I use, man. Michael, did you see any more questions in here? I didn't see anything else.
I think we got them all.
And we got them good. Yeah. This is good conversation, fellas. Y'all, we hit a lot of points, even more, which I figured we'd do that. I figured I'd just have a little bit of a pathway to keep us going in the right direction, but we hit a lot of stuff. We definitely answered more than the 4 questions that we plan to do here. We have to do this again because I think, like, after talking to you guys, I think that the subject on motors could be its own separate workshop.
Yeah, it definitely could. You've got the motor man
out
there. No one's tested more boats, more motors in the kayak industry than Little. It's not even close.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's get together after this is over with and just plan just a little class just on motors, because I think that's the more I think about, I wasn't thinking about that when we initially planned this, but after listening to how much depth and insight you guys have on all the other subjects, I think we could just make motors just a whole separate class.
Well, that industry changed again. That industry just in the last 2 years has changed once again. As like, I know we're not trying to get into it now, but as the batteries have evolved, as the boats have evolved to now more gas motors. Power Pole, has got a bow mount now. So I mean, you can get into, there's 3, 4, 5 different types of motors that you can put on a kayak now, and that wasn't the case 4 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I got my first kayak, I mean, it was just so taboo to even have a motor. Like, what? Yeah. People are like, what? A motor?
Like, people talk about the paddle, the paddle or the pedal versus power.
That was even a big deal.
And I mean no disrespect, but the motors are here. Like, the price of them, the quality of them, the cost of the batteries, you're not putting that genie back in the bottle. So motors aren't going anywhere. Yeah.
That's so I think let's do, this is a good conversation. Let's do that. We'll plan on doing that. I'll get in the we'll touch bases maybe sometime tomorrow or sometime later this week and get that.
There's a suggestion of motors and fish finders.
Fish finders. Oh, that's well, we do that. We got that. We got Ella electronics, fishing electronics here, Nat.
Motors and electronics on your small vessel, 100%.
Yep. Well, let's do that. Thank y'all, fellas. Jeff, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be a part of this. Same with you too, Scott. I appreciate it, man. This is good insight. I feel like everybody got some good, valuable information tonight. So thank y'all for doing it. And we'll get together and talk motors here in the very near future.
Cool. Sounds great, Brian. Thank you for letting us both come on and share our experiences with your audience, man. We're big fans of you. Hope the kids are well. Hope that beautiful wife of yours is doing well. And we'll see you next time, guys. And everybody else at Straight Up Fishing, man. We enjoyed it. Much love to you guys. Be safe on the water. And set the hook, man. Set the hook.
Right on. Thank you, man. I appreciate y'all. I'll be in touch with you in the next couple of days or so. Thank you, Michael.
Guys.
All right. See you
guys.
Michael.
Yes, sir.